What's going on, guys? It is the Coaster Battleman here, bringing you an awesome video, another coaster countdown. It's been a few days since I have uploaded, and here are my top 10 coasters at Cedar Point, or top 14 if you could, because the honorable mentions, 14th is Cedar Creek Mine Ride. That ride is pretty boring and rough. Corkscrew is basically the same thing as Cedar Creek Mine Ride, except it's the first coaster to feature 3 inversions. Pretty rough ride, and the airtime hill after the first drop is a pretty bad element. 12th is Blue Streak. That coaster has some good airtime moments, but is rough. And then Iron Dragon is a very nice suspended coaster, but it's not good enough to make the top 10 unless all my experiences on it were with VR. Number 10 is Rugarou, and this coaster is the B&M floorless coaster of Cedar Point, and this coaster is known for its inversions and first drop, and for once being a stand-up coaster called Mantis. Now it is Rugarou, and it is a much better coaster than what it was as Mantis. And overall, Rugarou has a nice drop, 4 inversions. It is pretty rattly, though, on some of those inversions, but it's still a pretty fun coaster. Number 9 is Magnum, the first coaster over 200 feet. Magnum XL 200, it is a legendary coaster among the coaster community because this was the first ever hyper coaster, and it delivers a pretty good ride experience. It's not a good ride experience like a very good ride experience like Diamondback or any B&M hypercoaster or Intamin Hyper, but it's not a bad ride at all. This coaster has a few nice ejector airtime moments at the end of the ride, some floater airtime hills at the beginning of the ride after the first drop, as well as a bow tie helix in the middle of the ride. Number 8 is Wicked Twister, and this coaster is a very fun Intamin impulse coaster. It's known for its launches and its 2 twisting spikes. And when you're in one of the back or the front rows, you will twist up backwards or forwards, and it would be a very intense experience twisting up the spike. And Wicked Twister is known for those 2 spikes and the launches it has. The launches are all very fun. And when you twist up the spikes, if you're in the back row, or in the back, or in the front row, or front, you might get a little bit of head banging, but still, Wicked Twister is a very fun, intimate impulse. 7th is Gemini, and this is just a fun, all-around roller coaster. It has some nice drops. You have the racing element you want on a racing coaster. This coaster was once the tallest coaster in the world back in 1978, but still, this coaster is a very fun coaster. It has some nice drops, some good helixes, and overall, it's a solid coaster at Cedar Point. Number 6 is Raptor, and this is the B&M invert at Cedar Point, and this is a very fun invert. It has some very good inversions, which include a vertical loop, cobra roll, some corkscrews, and overall, Raptor recently got a repaint, so it looks fresh. So, overall, Raptor, very fun coaster. It's very intense. It could have some head banging once in a while through those corkscrews, but still, this is a very fun coaster, and I don't really mind the head banging that much on this ride. Number 5 is the B&M dive coaster Val Raven, and this coaster, in my opinion, back in 2016 when I rode it for the first time, was like the 3rd best ride at Cedar Point, right after I visited Cedar Point for the first time. But now, overall, it's been going down in my rankings because I feel like the ride just every time you ride it, it just seems shorter and shorter, in my opinion, but it's still a very fun coaster. The drop is fun, the inversions are fun, there's some nice turns throughout the ride as well, and overall this is a very good coaster and a general public pump-up that really did attract crowds to Cedar Point. Number 4 is the B&M Wing Coaster Gatekeeper, and this is my favorite B&M at Cedar Point. Some people may say this is one of their least favorite B&Ms at Cedar Point. Some people, like Coaster Studios, will prefer the older B&Ms at Cedar Point over the newer B&Ms, but I prefer the more modern B&Ms at Cedar Point due to their smoothness and overall rides, and Gatekeeper is not a disappointment at all. I wasn't really expecting much from Gatekeeper as I heard that it wasn't the greatest wing coaster, but I was pleasantly surprised. The coaster had a very fun wing overdrop that delivered great hang time. There was some airtime on that airtime hill that most people say it's useless. This is just an amazing all-around roller coaster filled with great inversions and near-miss elements. Now we're in our big three, and everyone knows Cedar Point's big three, but here's my opinion on them. Third is Top Thrill Dragster, and this coaster, boy, that launch is literally what makes this coaster at third place. The launch is super intense, 120 miles per hour, going up 420 feet high. This coaster is breathtaking. Probably my best experience on this coaster was in the summer of 2016. I got to ride this coaster at night, front row. The launch was super intense. Bugs were covering me all over. It was just an amazing experience. And overall, Top Thrill Dragster, one of my favorite roller coasters and one of the best coasters at Cedar Point and one of the best launch coasters in the world. Number 2 is Maverick, and tons of people consider this one of the best roller coasters in the world, and I think it is one of the best because this coaster is just an intense, rapid-fire transition ride. There's just so many different elements on this ride. 2 inversions, a few airtime moments, sweet bank turns, sharp turns, a very forceful launch in the middle of the ride. This coaster literally has it all except for the height. But moving on, Maverick is just literally a 10 out of 10 coaster. The lift hill is fast. That if you're in the back row, oh my gosh, if a back row experience on Maverick is just amazing. With that drop, you'll get some insane ejector air on it, and on those airtime hills, you'll get some sweet ejector air as well. And overall, Maverick, just an amazing roller coaster, and my number 2 coaster out of all the coasters I've ridden. But number 1 is Millennium Force. And this coaster is just pure fun. I just love this ride. Every time I ride it, I always ride in the back row, and the first drop is just amazing. The bank turns are tons of fun. Tons of people say that this ride will cover you in bugs, but I have never gotten covered on bugs on Millennium Force, period. But still, this coaster is so much fun. The bank turns are amazing. The airtime hills have some great floater air. And the final airtime hill has some nice ejector air as well. The restraints are amazing. I really like the capacity of the coaster, where there's like 36 riders in the whole train. And overall, Millennium Force is just a pure all-around ride with just amazing elements. And even though people will say, oh, this coaster is just bank turns and airtime, that's what I'm into. Just very fun bank turns and airtime that just make a coaster fun. And thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. And Millennium Force is one of the best roller coasters ever built. Stay tuned for more videos.